fire station, if you did go out for our RFP to see if anyone was interested, if we had kept the fire station, the capital cost of reconstructing was very high, but over the life of that bond of 40 years or whatever that bond life was, we actually made a ton of money, like through revenue, through rent, but you can't look at it as, we're gonna put in 500,000 and then our rent's only gonna be 30,000 for that year or something. If we do that analysis, I want it to be apples to apples over the bonding, life of the bond, so that we know if we are recouping that value. We didn't do that necessarily in public with the fire station because it's part of us, but if it was for another entity, it'd be very important.
Mm-hmm. I mean, can we bond it to then lease it out? I mean, we can't bond to pay TIs to lease to somebody. I don't see how that. Okay, so we haven't really gotten much resolution, but I would be interested. I agree. I think if the CDA or if we put something out to see if there's private interest in it, because I agree. I don't see that we have a burning need for that space right now.
Right now, correct.
We might want to wait till the Legion is developed.
Yeah, you don't know.
Yeah, that's
what's
right.
gonna happen.
So so again, like
And we don't have a burning.
I think we
might
should
want
also
one at some point.
see what next door is looking to do. A
Right.
year ago, we didn't have someone who was gonna, I didn't think it was gonna be anything other than a Legion post.
I mean, they
Right.
might want more parking, and which is my guess, correct?
So one of the challenges, logistically, and this is something that, we've talked about as a staff, this site, it may be great to say that you wanna lease it to somebody, but you don't have parking. So for those of you who aren't aware, the parking that is on the southern end of the police station site, we need for purposes of employee parking for the police station.
Until they get the garage. It's being utilized by our cop cars right now, right?
Right.
So if we had 12 spaces.
I haven't asked them to run the calcs on
They're
that.
using the north side right now as well.
So,
The employees park on the north side.
Right.
And the south
just
side
saying
is
there's
for
12.
squad.
for squads. So, do you wanna update anything or something too? So, from there, the parking lot that you see to the south of the Legion Post is owned by the Legion Post, and we have an agreement with them which expires 2024.
Wow.
That was with AB Data before we actually bought the building. So, and in that agreement, we are allowed access and use of the lot, which is why we have some employees who park, in that up against the building, things like that, but it's not, we actually don't own that land. And so I think people,
What if they take it away? Do we need more surface parking for our own employees? And that would be the community. I mean, like, if I knew, like that new information may dictate what it needs to go for.
yeah, so I guess that's why I bring it up in the discussion, because it was mentioned, people have been talking about that, if the garage isn't completed, we don't have room for anyone else to park, we don't own that lot, we don't
Yeah, you
know.
don't need to
Yeah, it doesn't
build
work
for every
For a
employee.
big crowd
That's
to park.
expensive.
there's no
Correct,
parking.
yeah, so there, I'm like, there may be some, it's just new.
So would the board consider, if we lose our employee spaces, I wouldn't wanna personally build a garage for every employee space, but could we use the community room space for surface parking for our employees? If we lose our employee parking in 2024?
And like
Wait,
demo
you park
well, you would
on the
have-
south.
There's some problems with doing that. I thought of that too.
Oh, right.
So,
First one about it.
obviously, once you get, either you propose modifying the exterior walls, which then becomes, again, somewhat cost prohibitive. It's similar to like putting an addition on, right? Well, but more importantly, even with the garage design as it is, even if you wanted that all to be interior parking, there's limits to how far you can go over, because now, again, you run into other challenges with other interior walls to the police space, so that would start adding some costs, so.
What would you do with your employee parking?
Well, if the garage moves forward, the squads go
Then there's
inside and that
room.
frees up
Park on the
space
south
Outside.
side.
Oh, okay.
on the outside for staff, so. But I'm always angling with it too, trying to find any ideas I can come up with.
We own that first strip of parking spots north of the building, that's our land, no? They're up to the building?
No, it's not up to the building, there's a certain, it's the telephone.
There's
First.
about a car length.
Right, you can't get in, but you can
But
park,
if they take their lot away,
you
we
can't get
don't
in
have any
there,
access
so,
to
yeah,
it.
you,
Uh-huh.
so.
Okay, yes,
I just wanna know how much we wanna get through.
I mean, I think.
I'm sorry,
I
that was my
think
fault.
I'd like to, go through the rest of these, I'd like to talk about if we're missing any projects or other projects, and I think that's about, I think we'll have covered everything, but I mean, if we need to go, then there's no need to stay.
I'd like to know too, I was trying to manage my time here.
Well, I think it's gonna be at least another 20 minutes, that's what my estimate.
Wilson Drive Phase 2, could you just refresh the memory what that is?
So the last time we left off on that, I think we talked about it when we sat in this room and went through the plan review. And it was the forethought of the group that, you know what, we really need to let this be in for a year, there's not as much room as we thought. We're still also waiting on finalization from MCTS in terms of, are they gonna keep the locations, are they not? So I've reached out to him for clarification, to see when the county board is actually gonna be voting on those decisions, because we're also holding on furniture for that portion.
They haven't
So-
voted on that?
No,
Oh, I thought we were keeping
Is
it.
that was a verbal.
Well, I think the route is being kept, but it's not the same stuff, like the.
it's whether the
Oh,
stations
okay.
will stay, or the stops, shredded, so
The
that's.
stops are changing, but.
They might like consolidate
That makes
some
sense.
of the stops and some of the riderships and some of the.
So my notes from the last time we met on that was to revisit it next year, based upon what we learned. And that after, so from a phase 2 perspective, we wouldn't go and take a look at if there is anything else that we may or need to do or wanna consider doing until next year, so it's a
Are you
touch
talking
point.
about the benches? So my question is, so I forget
Separate.
how many, okay, this is nothing to do
Benches,
with benches.
street furniture is one, we budgeted to do that this year.
Okay, great.
We held on that because we didn't know which, bus stops were actually gonna be active moving forward in
But-
2020.
But didn't we, during the budget last year, I could be wrong, so please correct me, say that the most utilized ones, these should go first? So if we ordered, say there's 8 spots, I can't remember how many stops, but if there is one, like, that's very heavily utilized. And granted, if we ordered bench for, say, 3 of the most heavily utilized and they move, we could move our bench. I just feel really bad waiting an entire another year. I drive down Wilson all the time, and these people are older and handicapped that are riding the bikes and the buses, and they're just standing there.
Well, the county, just so you know, the county informed me that the county board was gonna make a decision in spring. And this was a week or 2 ago.
Oh,
Okay.
that's fine.
So I was like, okay, well, so I asked the follow-up question, what specific date are you looking to come to some resolution? Because
With-
we can go and order those things if we know,
Well,
right?
even if you just ordered 3, we can move them, it was
Well,
just
I'm
a
not sure the
possibility.
county is committed to keeping a route at this point yet.
Yeah.
It's provisionally recommended, but
But then we could keep them in stock, so when we need one. Is there any reason that we can't move forward with, maybe you wait till their vote, I don't know, but
Yeah.
I
It's a
think
full year.
if you're this, the freight on those benches is
A lot.
obscene. And you get a significant break. I mean, you order one bench, you order 6 benches, you basically pay the same freight.
right.
So if you can hold off for another couple of weeks and see if they come to
Sure.
a decision, that would
But
be
what if they
fine.
don't, I guess we're.
Well, what I've seen is that MCTS budget's being cut by 10%, and there was an article in the paper, and it's gonna mean route changes, so I
Yeah.
think we're just up in the air.
Yeah.
We probably, by the time we are budgeting, we will know, I assume.
That's what I'm hoping.
But this phase 2 is the west landscape area of Wilson, I believe.
Well,
The
there was
amenities,
some
potential
amenity I mean, there were some concepts
Yeah,
that
there
were
was
discussed during
tons,
planning.
butterfly garden, I mean, there was use of that extra green space.
Right, but I think to Rebecca's point, I think the green space that we all conceptualized during planning is not as extensive in reality
Yeah.
once it was built.
Yeah.
Because it's on a slope.
No, just because, you know, I think when that was conceptualized, there was thought that that roadway would be narrowed significantly, and there would be available use on the west side for active use. And there really isn't.
So let me clarify for a second what you're saying. I've never heard that besides today. I was always under the impression that the last plans we saw in the budget that we adopted, granted it had a phase two, but showed the space. So are you saying that space, the last versions that went to Public Works and then full board got smaller?
I've never had plans that
Okay.
showed the development of that space. We've never had anything
Well, I mean, I
that-
think we were also
cited
gonna plan to
anything.
walk, I mean, I think maybe when we walk Wilson, we can,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
frankly, I have to say with it being open and, you know, it's been almost, I forgot when it opened, the fall, right?
Yeah.
So, with the spring, I mean, I've been noticing that the housing on the west side is selling at, you know, the listing prices are always assessed. It seems like the housing market is very hot on the west side, and I think
Yeah.
part of it is that
Oh.
Wilson Drive used to be this kind of ugly barrier, and
Yeah.
now Wilson Drive is very attractive, it's much easier to cross, and it really has been
Yeah.
connecting to, so
Yes.
now this neighborhood that used to be kind of the backyard of Shorewood is now like, oh, you're right next to this lovely park, and
Yeah.
I think people are coming in and seeing. And, I mean, you know, it has good and bad, but, and there's like 4 flips going on for sale right now, there's a lot of flipping happening on the west side.
Oh, yeah.
So,
I don't know about the flipping, but well done.
I
Because
know,
it is this
right?
huge
Good job,
gem, you
guys.
guys, for
well,
like,
Oh,
it's,
and like being right by
it's well
Estabrook
done if you
and,
think, if you want,
Do you
I
think
mean,
we
it's,
should tell the
it is good and it is bad, but like
Oh.
there's not gonna be a house, when I moved here, you could find a house under, you know, under 250,000. I mean, there's houses on Sheffield that are now, there are tiny little boxes that they're asking 350, 375 for. So that's great if you are interested in
Sure.
gentrification, and that's what we've gotten. But in any case, we have what we have, and I think we've improved enough. That's my opinion.
That's fine.
I was
If
just
that's
saying a
the
positive
decision,
for
Yeah.
improving the
Yeah,
area.
it's
I just
Sure,
think
that's
this
good.
is
It's
for
really nice.
the stakeholders that participated, that if there's no room to do any improvements, there is an expectation, and I don't feel comfortable with it not. If I just, I might have heard it before and apologize, but if this time it's just sinking in, then it might be the same with some of our residents, and I just feel like.
Yeah, I recommended the last time we talked about it,
Okay.
that maybe, that I thought it would be acceptable to given, to let them know.
Just, yeah, I mean,
If we
there,
felt
I
that-
feel like I don't wanna trick, you know, like, feel like, I don't want there'd be any misconception that we're just
And I
hiding it
think
from
there
them.
was split,
Okay.
I remember there wasn't like consensus that it was necessary, that, you know, trustee Mensah thought people had moved on, you know, but we might wanna revisit it.
I mean, there's certainly room for some public art, you know.
Yeah, there was like statue
But
or
not
a
the
rock
equestrian
or-
statue that was.
But yeah, I'm just saying, there was a lot that was
Yeah.
thought about.
There was like a guy
Was there-
that worked
There was
with
whole
it.
groups that did
Well,
parts.
they-
It was a
they
mock up
made
on
some
it,
sort
yeah.
of-
Oh my God, a Civil War
really-
statue,
okay,
I
so
hear they're
but we will
cheap
get-
on the market.
So Leah, just to get back on Wilson Drive, so how much of this is benches and garbage cans? And how
I
much
don't
of-
believe any of it.
None of
No,
it.
we already budgeted.
Yeah, the other
That's
stuff's
already,
are.
how much does anyone remember?
We only did 3.
60.
Oh,
So
60,000
there's
on
not a
those.
city of $500,000 for statues and stuff.
Equestrian,
You're-
horse.
So that's probably more than we need.
Kensington, let me just verify,
More
there was
than-
sketches on Kensington Square, like the Kensington, there were bump outs that had parks and benches, I don't, everything that you're talking about is because of the bioswales.
Well, I mean,
I just don't wanna scrap it without saying something to the public.
there was, I forget, there was so we had kind of two plans, and the board, so one of the plans had kind of a grand, median entryway, and then it had more developed space at Kensington, and that plan, the board voted to
Phase 1, we did not want
Not-
those costs.
not proceed with that plan. So there was a pared down landscape plan that the board voted on. So there
That
was
was
some
phase 1.
discussion of doing this phase 2 concept, and at one time we talked about like a pilot project with the water council and
Well, yeah.
all these sort of undefined things, right? It was very largely undefined.
Yeah, there was a long public, I mean, the input session for public was 18 months, and that's what they were developing. And then the final plans were not funded in phase 1, but they certainly included Kensington Square bump outs with benches, and I mean, I can bring them.
Well, I think,
Well,
there
it's-
was, we
it's
talked
fine
about
if we're trying to
walking,
do it.
The board never
we
voted.
talked about butterfly gardens, we
build
talked
that.
about walking paths, so there were a
Right.
number of things that were
Yep.
discussed, but I think we
We're
need
Xing
to
them, we just need
revisit
to-
it. I think we need to
Right,
revisit it.
that's why it's here.
Okay, okay.
Well, I just heard that there's no room to do any of it, and I was like, well, if we're gonna scratch it all, then we need to at least say that we're not doing it.
Oh, I'm not sure there's room for a bocce ball court.
No, I don't think so.
No, it's too small, we need a complex.
And it was not a bocce ball court, nothing.
So we're gonna revisit it. Okay, so village,
at the police station?
Oh.
Indoor bocce at the police station?
Oh.
indoor bocce.
Then you gotta sprinkle the whole damn thing for that bocce.
It's worth it. It's
Okay,
worth it. I've got a curling, indoor curling.
Badminton,
What
I
about
think
the
a lot of
shooting
things.
range downstairs?
And
Is that big enough for
actually,
bocce? That could be
well,
revenue.
No,
if you
elevator
have to
ring.
sprinkle
Everybody
it,
can't, I
then-
can buy it, they scratch the elevator.
Okay, I'm gonna bring us back
Yeah,
around and
let's
say
do
that's
that.
all.
That's
All
good.
right,
Hey,
Village
come on.
Center HVAC, we have way out there in 2028, is
Yeah.
that the same? Yes, so that's exactly the same. Future facilities, $500,000, that's another kind of,
Pie in the sky.
out there, we don't know exactly.
Need.
Anybody have any other questions? Okay, so water relay, these are water projects unrelated to road projects, correct?
Correct.
And that's the same. No, there's a little bit more. Okay, and, Oakland meter pit,
Is that in relation to Oakland Meter Pit, in relation to the Edgewood project?
No.
Are they in the same area?
Generally speaking,
Would you be tearing up the same, I think it's the same year, which is good, but I'm just saying, like.
it's not the same year. No, you could not do those at the same time. They have to be done separately.
But do they tear up any of the same stuff? The pavement?
Well, we, that is a bit undefined as to what MMSD will specifically be doing in the Edgerton Oakland